remember is to thank you, Don, for being with us today. So let me stop sharing my screen so that they can see you. If you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself, you can go ahead and start.
Okay, good morning, and I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Yeah, good morning. It's great to be with you, and this my first experience of Sangha ceremony, and my first experience is to be part of the sharing, so it's doubly intimidating. So forgive me, but I do feel quickly at home in the language you use and the way you relate to each other and to the spiritual. And I will explain that a little bit further. But let me jump right in and first apologize to you for my absence a few weeks ago when I was going through some pretty unexpected transitions, taking our daughter to school and being out of town and driving for a long period of time and being totally worn out. But I want to share with you today somewhat from a biographical point of view, a little bit of my journey and how that relates to my present views and ideas about life and reality. I came to America, the land of possibilities, with the great enthusiasm for the justice that movement that was here at the time, the civil rights movement. I arrived in 1970. I was hankering for the civil rights movement and to be part of it. It seemed to answer my own contemplative response to the Christian scriptures, to love our neighbors as ourselves, and to love our enemies. And I was very attracted to Martin Luther King's interpretation of that as being wrapped up in the American dream, that all people are created equal, etc. And so even though I came at the tail end of the civil rights movement, I made a commitment to live in the hood, as people call it, or in the lower income community, minority community, as part of my life discipline, to live that out, to be useful in the world, and to love those who are need most love, and to be in the place where I can make the biggest difference. So that's what I've done since college, except for maybe 2 years. And I very quickly, after graduating from college with a degree in industrial design, and became a toy designer, inventor, working for corporate toy manufacturers. And I very quickly joined my adopted tribe, the Black church, or the African American church, and lived in African American communities. It is in such a church that I met my wife, Sandra, and we became partners in a common vision for being in the world and making a difference, giving back, and really reversing the brain drain from the inner cities after the civil rights movement earned fair housing laws. And there was all this white flight and middle class flight that hollowed out America's inner cities and caused a brain drain and a resource drain. So we figured if that's what caused the problem, then we can be part of the solution by reversing that. And so we moved together into the North Minneapolis, Jordan neighborhood. Interestingly, after myself, after a couple of decades, and with Sandra after a few years, we sort of broke from the tribe of the Black church as the ultimate belonging to effectively be more loving in a diverse world, to be more useful. During that whole time, simultaneously, I had become very aware of disconnection for me between the spiritual and the temporal in my life. I was raised in the church. My dad was a minister of a Pentecostal church. I don't know if you know those, but very deeply, intensely spiritual. And but I also had this kind of civil rights stimulated concern for social justice and equality. And it was about 1986 that I came to grips with the fact that I had these two things held in two different hands, and they never really connected. I spent a lot of time reading and thinking and discussing social issues, and I spent a lot of different time praying or being meditative, contemplative. And so I prayed for and went on a 6-year fast every Wednesday to try to integrate myself, my preoccupations, and to make my spiritual life part of my social preoccupation and vice versa. And I think over that period of time, that did happen. And so ultimately, I became a council member in, well, let me say that there was disillusionment on my part at the single race solution for a multi-race problem. That is America's racial problem. Because it is in relationship that we are hurt, as someone said, and it is in relationship only that we will be healed. And there's no more hurtful relationship in America than Black and white, Black and Indian, or Native American. And no greater segregation, first by law, then by custom, and now by economics and race. So when I joined the city council from a community of great disparity, part of my effort was to bring the leadership of the city in alignment with the pain of my community, because that white flight and middle class flight had removed some of the connective nervous tissue that that had created a connection between the pain in the extreme margins of our society and the brain of the leadership of our community. And so there was a lack of experience of the pain, the suffering, the disparities. And so the leadership of the city could exist quite happily, even though on the fringes there was great suffering. The disconnection with the loss of the folks who were connected to leadership made it the body politic able to maintain a sense of peace, to celebrate prosperity, even while parts of the body were in great suffering. And so the segregation became an avoidance, and it created a cognitive dissonance, which then leads to stereotyping. Why are those people acting like that? Why are those people living like that? The people on the same body politic are not understood because of this distancing. And so we create stories to justify and to understand what we have been separated from. Someone says that we grow either through great love or great pain. That is one of the teachings that Richard Rohr from the Center for Action and Contemplation, of which I'm a part, teaches. We grow through either great love or great pain, and mostly through great pain. And so living in the low-income community offers a lot of opportunity for growth. And when the city leadership and the community at large connects with that pain, then America has an opportunity for great growth. It was in the spirit that I started to hold vigils in the city whenever someone was killed. We would go to that location the day or very soon thereafter, whenever there was a homicide, and stay there from morning till night and fast to bring, as a city council member or a leader of the city, a focus to the place of pain on that day. To say that this place of unjust dying is the most painful place in the city on that day, and in a way the most important place. Because if the tip of your finger is in great pain and distress, the whole body will make it a priority. The hand will hold the phone that calls the doctor, and the mouth will explain the problem. The ears will listen to the doctor say, "Come in right now." And the whole body will take the finger to the doctor. But if there is no connection between the nervous system and the end tip of the finger, then the body can ignore the pain, won't even feel the pain. And so the effort was to bring the body in restored connection to the suffering part, the ailing part of itself. And then the body can act accordingly with a level of urgency that is appropriate to the pain, to the deterioration that is taking place. And that is really what happened when George Floyd was killed. The whole body reconnected for 8 minutes and 46 seconds to a part of the body that had been alienated from itself, and came to grips with the pain that was being felt right there, and the great trauma that was being experienced, and everything fell apart. You know, save the trauma of an event. For me, meditation has become the best integrator of the temporal things and spiritual. It's the ultimate integrator of matter and spirit, between human and all matter, between humans and all living things, and between humans and other humans. Between pain, the pain of broken relationships and brokenness, and the awareness that we all have the potential to experience. And George Floyd, his pain and his suffering has brought us all to a point where, if we can integrate his pain into our meditative and contemplative life, we can achieve something in this moment that had never been achieved before. I think in June 14, Gail Wong's sensitive and vulnerable Dharma message, I listened to a few of them, and I was particularly touched by her statement that she grew up as a middle-class in a suburban middle-class bubble, that she was disconnected from that hurting part, and that George Floyd's death woke her up to something she had no idea existed. Richard Rohr, the head of the Center for Action and Contemplation, says that until the present falls apart, we will never look for something more. We will never discover what it is that really sustains us. That dreaded falling apart experience is always suffering in some form. All of us hate suffering, yet all religions talk about it as necessary. It seems to be the price we pay for the death of the small self and the emergence of the true self when we finally come to terms with our true identity. Many Jungians describe this in psychological terms as the necessary soul suffering that comes from the death of the ego. Jesus would say, unless the grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it can't regenerate more fruit, more wheat. By avoiding this legitimate pain of being human, we sadly bring on ourselves much longer lasting and often fruitless pain. In my meditation, I experience the presence. I'm present to the presence of the omnipresent and present to the omnipresent in all things, present to the reality that awareness of the omnipresence eradicates tribalism because we are all from one source. We're all one with the one. This is the beginning of empathy, of caring, of solidarity, of compassion, of mutuality, the capacity to share pain and the resiliency to endure it and to love. The end of tribalism, injustice, apathy, isolation, hate, revenge. It is the fountain of hope for a healthy world coming into relationship with itself, discovering unity not as a novelty, but as a reality as ancient as the Big Bang itself, where the diversity of things become the complex evolutionary surprise of nature, where diversity becomes experienced as the beauty of our lives. The diversity of cultures becomes the spice of life, to be celebrated, not hated. Where then America becomes a historical opportunity of history to demonstrate truest unity, where there is the greatest diversity, to transform the pain of deep and historical prejudice and injustice into growth. But to do this, we need another kind of spirituality to evolve our theologies. If we can integrate our thoughts and ideas for justice with our spiritual lives, with our contemplative lives, with our hymns, with our focus on the writings and scriptures that beg us to pay attention to the conditions of our fellow human beings, we can truly believe that no man is an island, no man stands alone, but each is part of the continent of humanity. And then our spirituality can truly heal the world, heal our ethnic rivalries and animosities, make us one people. Thank you.